Welcome, everyone. I'm Nancy Adajania, a cultural theorist and curator. And this discussion on Indian tattoo traditions carries forward some of the ideas presented by me and my co-panelists, Phejin Konyak, Mo Naga, and Shatabdi Chakraborty, in the issue of the Marg magazine titled Indian Tattoos, Only Skin Deep, with a question mark. Now, Marg has a very rich intellectual legacy. It was born in 1946, a year before India achieved independence. Its founding editor, the novelist and art critic Mulk Raj Anand, was broadly leftist humanist in his outlook. He wanted Marg to take its place in the larger debates of an expansive internationalism rather than a narrowly conceived nationalism. In a 1953 issue in Marg, he proclaimed, and I quote, "The emotion of nationalism is the most dangerous and undesirable when it becomes self-assertive, as it then tends to be more irrational. Culturally, it tends to be revivalist and decadent, more especially in the realm of the arts." Close quote. 73 years later, these words feel even more appropriate and urgent when forms of dissent have been suppressed. In keeping with Marg's tradition of critical contextualization of the arts, tempered with ideas of social justice and progressive cultural values, we will be briefly sharing our vantage points on the philosophy and aesthetics of documenting India's diverse tattoo traditions. For more than a decade now, tattooing has been perceived as a fashionable body art by the urban hipster, upwardly mobile communities in India. Apart from raiding the internet for generic global tattoo art designs, there has also been a concerted effort to revive traditional Adivasi designs or patterns within the Indian context. As Marg's current editor, Naman Ahuja, has observed, as compared to studies on tattooing in Africa, Polynesia, and Micronesia, a serious discourse on the subject is only just being revived in South Asia. So here's the roadmap. Each of us will make a short 5 to 7 minute AV presentation, and then we'll have a discussion. May I invite Phejin Konyak, the author of the brilliant book, The Konyaks, The Last of the Tattooed Headhunters.
My name is Phejin Konyak. Konyak is the name of my tribe, which is found in Nagaland, of Mon district of Nagaland, and in Sagaing division of Myanmar. The Konyaks were mostly known for their facial tattoos, and I have done intensive documentation and research of the vanishing tattoo tradition of the Konyaks for 4 years in India and Burma. This book is an outcome of 4 years of research. It was released in 2017 by the previous president of India, Sri Ramnath Kovind, at the Hornbill Festival. If you look at the map of India, most probably many people I've come across, they do not know where Nagaland is. So on the map of India, Nagaland is on the northeast, bordering Myanmar. And in Nagaland, Mon district is on the northeasternmost part of the state. So there are 3 tattoo groups in the tribe, and I've given the description according to the tattoo patterns on the map. This is one of the last neck tattoos of my tribe. There are no more men or people with tattoos. This is a tiger spirit tattoo of a shaman. These are the traditional tattoo tools. This is me getting my arm tattooed in 2016 by the last Konyak tattoo artist. This was done after 58 years. Her last tattooing was in 1958, and I persuaded her to tattoo on my arm as to document the tradition of our tribe. So this is probably the last mark of my tribe, traditional tattooing. And Mo Naga also happened to be on that day. It was an honor that she could pass on her tradition to my friend Mo Naga, and Mo also helped with the tattooing. The needle is made of rattan palm, and the ink is from the Indian mahogany. These are the illustrations from my book of a male and female konyak, konyak male and female. I've provided illustrations in the book, knowing that in many years later, or even 10 years later, when there are no more people walking about with tattoo patterns, it will be an information for the future generation. So it was needed to have illustrations along with photographs. This is me with my late granduncle. This is my grandfather. He passed away in 2010. But my grandfather's generation and my grandmother's generation are the last tattoo generation of our tribe. The illustration on the right is of my great grandfather. This was done in 1920 by a British anthropologist named J.H. Hutton. And on the other side is a British man. His name is Henry Balfour. He became the first curator of the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford. And he visited my great grandfather in 1922. And he collected tattoo tools and samples from my village, which I happened to view in 2018 on my trip to Oxford. So Henry Balfour became the first curator of the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford, and he is also the 40th president of the Royal Geographical Society. So it was a coincidence for me and the Royal Geographical Society that in 2004, they invited me to give a talk at the Royal Geographical Society in Hong Kong. So I had a personal connection dating to 100 years with my great-grandfather and Henry Balfour. These are the tattoo tools, Konyak tattoo tools and other Naga tattoo tools which I found in Oxford. It is in the World Tattoo section. And I also found the tattoo tool which was given in 1922 by my great-grandfather. So it is still on display at the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford. This is me at the Oxford Museum. They were very excited when I decided to pay them a visit. So they have taken out all the tools that was collected from my great-grandparents 100 years ago. It was in the restricted archive, and they took it out specially for me to view. These were small strips of loincloths which was woven with tree fibers by my great-grandmother. It's also in the collection of the Oxford Museum, and it is well preserved. That man whose photo I'm holding is of my great-grandfather. This was taken in 1920. It's under the World Tattoo section in the Pitt Rivers Museum, and that's Philip Grover. He was the photography director of the Pitt Rivers Museum, and he was very excited and gave me a printed copy. Yeah. So this is the end of my my speech. If we can ask questions later on, I pass them.
Thank you. Thank you, Phejin. And I'll just make my brief presentation and then hand over to Mo. My focus is on the migration of tattoos from the body. Can I have my slides, please? I will focus on the migration of tattoos from the body, where they have traditionally functioned as a membrane of inscription between the physical and the metaphysical realms, to paper and canvas. I'll briefly trace this transition through the practice of two Adivasi artists, the late Shantibai Maravi and her daughter Manglabai Maravi. That's Manglabai on the screen with the colossal figure bearing Bega tattoos that she painted for the Sydney Biennale in 2024. These tattoo practitioners from the Badi community have inked the women of the Bega and Goan communities with the traditional hand poke technique. In their role as artists showing works on paper, they perform the dual role of conserving a dying tattoo tradition, but also going beyond documentation to propose a new iconography. When Adivasi artists are presented in museums and tribal art conventions, the tendency is to reduce them to their ethnographic contexts and attribute their practices to hereditary craft and tribal lore rather than their imagination. One way to remedy this is to explore the clues in the paintings that elude consensual readings. It is remarkable how this mother daughter pair has braved social stigma and the economic challenges to articulate their own gendered subjectivities. This is one of my favorite Shantibai works from 2010. Through an innovative scaling up, the artist has translated the Bega tattoo repertory into a symbolic figurative idiom. It is hieratic in its monumentality and yet makes a concession to a flesh and bone body. We see hints of a tangibly human vulnerability here. The body here is shaped like an arch, constructed with rounded arms. This roundedness, intriguingly, creates a heightened sense of void. There's hunger and yearning here, of the kind that cannot be put into words. The eyes of the figure try to hold waves of grief at bay. A faint trace of a mouth, a pencil line missing a lick of paint, trembles before vanishing into the canvas. The forehead is adorned with the readily identifiable Bega tattoo of the chula or the hearth. The skeptic might say that the arms are disproportionate to the body, that the void is a happenstance. But I'm more inclined to read this work with its slight awkwardness as a triumph of the artist's imagination over the mandates of ethnography or art school preciness. Look at the hair, casually knotted in the time between cooking and painting. Careless strands, wispy, even wistful, coming out of the bun. The brushwork is so delicate, each strand is a miracle of fine draftsmanship. Manglabai shares with me that her mother wanted to make horses, Ganesha, and Parvati, but she rarely got the chance to paint them. Both artists have had to fulfill the mandates of commissions that put them in their ethnographic box. But something changed when Manglabai was invited to participate in a tribal art camp organized by the Directorate of Culture at Rabindra Bhavan in Bhopal. The person in charge advised her to make, quote unquote, a more colorful painting rather than the standard black and white Bega tattoo motifs. He also wanted her to fill the empty canvas surrounding the figure. And this particular work is called Sahelia. It was made in 2022. It's an acrylic on canvas. For the first time, birds and trees appeared in Manglabai's painting. She decided to interpret the official mandate by representing two different Godna styles, Gond and Bega, one austere, the other more baroque. We encounter a trinity of female figures in Sahelia, girls at the threshold of flowering into womanhood. There is nothing hieratic or formidable about this painting. At the center stands an elegant Bega girl sporting a tantalizing silver kamarband. Her companions are two Gond girls magically turning into nature spirits before our eyes. With exquisite finesse, Manglabai renders the heart-shaped leaves of the Kachnar tree and the gorgeous blue Nilkant birds pecking at them. Apparently, Adivasis believe that sighting the Nilkant on Dashera is very auspicious. Manglabai does not represent the tree as a continuation of the Gond girls' bodies. She tells me their faces are floating above the trees, but then you can interpret it the way you like. Close quote. I asked her what she painted first, the faces, or the trees. First, the trees, she said. What looks like a resplendent, seamless painting denoting two different tattoo styles is hiding something in plain sight. Evidently, Manglabai's first thought was for something more perennial than human, its invocation lying far beyond the responsibility of documenting a dying tattoo tradition. Before the three girls who are about to blossom into their youth, she bears witness to the green, living, and fruiting world that animates them and all of us. The threat to that world is ultimately more urgent than the threat to any form or style of art. Thank you. And now I'd like to hand over to
The tiger, man, and spirit were once brothers. Growing up, they, they fought a lot as siblings. As they grow old, their parents also grew older, and eventually, after their parents passed away, the grown up tiger, man, and the spirit realized that there should be a much better way to live together because they can't be living together and fighting all the time. All of them agreed, and they come to a conclusion that rather than living together and fighting all the time, it would be better to live separately with love, with respect, and with boundaries. And that's how Tiger became the keeper of the forest, man became the keeper of the cultivated and the village area, the spirit became the keeper of the sky. This is a story of the Naga people that is passed down from ages, from generation to generation. The moral of the story is that we are all one, the forest, the sky, men, we must all coexist. And the best way to coexist is to have boundaries, and that allows to live in peace and respect and love for each other. That is how Naga, and for that matter, men used to live back in the times when they lived in the forest in a small community. The relation that they share with their natural environment was physical and visible and beyond what is physical and visible. Our ancestors learned to connect with the plants and the animal kingdom, the natural forces around them beyond what is physical and visible. They became really powerful. They communicate with the animals. They became one. And that is the place where our art, our stories comes from. And all of this shapes our identity. To give you an example, the photos on the slide, you see a village, one of the last villages that has the houses with the thatched roof. When the environment change, the way we the way we perceive and the way we express also changes. Today, when we look at our houses, the craft, the carvings, our art, our expressions, we somehow are not able to relate and communicate and interact with it the way our ancestors used to. Our tattoos are not just visually telling stories, they carry stories of our relation with the environment around us beyond what is physical and visible. And to show you that, if you look at the slide, you see the carvings on the wood are tigers, and the markings on the back of the tigers is also the markings on the form of tattoo that you see on the back of the man, and that is the same man which Phejin had showed in her presentation. This man is a powerful man who claimed to have 9 lives and he is a tiger man. He is in one with the tiger, and the tattoo is tells us that. So our tattoos, our textiles, our carvings, our stories uh, are much more deeper than what is visible, and that is what intrigued me, and that is the reason why I took upon this journey to understand uh, my culture and to find a path between the past and the present, uh, to see what is possible and how to take it forward and make it relevant for my people. Because when we lose this knowledge, when we forget to tell the stories or to take it forward, our identity becomes weak. We as a community becomes weaker. Yeah. So in the next slides, I have tattoo tools. Also, the same tattoo tools that Phejin showed in her slides, because that was such an important moment for us. That was also the first time I got to see in its physical form how a tattoo tools looks like for the konyak and how it was done. So basically, the story comes from the land, but because tattoo is a medium of art, a visual art, uh, the art that is shaped and in the way in which we tell stories through tattoo is also dictated by the tools. How the tools are, how it is, how the tattoo is done, you know. And for that reason, it became important for me not just to study the patterns and the stories behind, but also to understand the tools, which means it also became important to study what plants. Uh, Basically, my journey has been about the study of the Naga culture, art and design culture, which means it is not defined or restricted to tattoos. I study the textiles, the craft, the insects, the animals, the plants, the architecture, because they are all intertwined and they are all reflecting each other to tell the stories. And today, what I do is use this language to tell stories and to keep the story alive and to keep my people interested, because we stopped tattooing 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years ago. And slowly, with every Naga tattoo that I do, it inspires and it sparks curiosity among my Naga brothers and sisters. And basically, that's what I do right now. And if I have to sum it up, my work is uh, decolonization through art design of my people, and most importantly, through indigenous aesthetics, because this is something that we hardly speak or discuss about. I think that the meanings and the significance and the stories are as important as the aesthetics. And I would like to stop here and we can continue later.
You so much, Mo. Mo is one of our finest tattoo artists, and he's also pioneered tattoo conservation, as he was talking about in his presentation. And now over to Shatabdi Chakraborty, a photographer and documentary filmmaker, and her documentation of the indigenous communities is conducted with a very empathetic, gendered lens. Over to you.
Thank you. So, about 20 years ago is when I started getting tattoos which were visible. Right now, my arms are quite covered. That time, I had only a few. And instantly, I started seeing a very different outlook of the people around me towards how they would view me. I was judged, I was labeled, I was called too modern. But growing up, I have grown up across different parts of the country because my father had a transferable job. And I remember seeing traditional tattoos in different communities, in different areas wherever we used to live. So for me, it was not a Western concept or an alien concept. My motives, my designs, my patterns were different, but the art form was the same, which I had seen in our traditional spaces. So I began with the question that what happens when a traditional art form starts evolving and starts moving from its place of origin into more modern and urbanized spaces. In these images, you can see one hand is mine and the other hand is of an indigenous woman from different communities. So India has a rich, history and practice of tattooing. It is as diverse as our communities across the country. And over the last 15 odd years, I have been traveling to these areas, going to the hinterlands, trying to document not just the people who carry these traditional markings on them today, but also to try and gather the stories and the oral traditions which are linked with this practice. So these are a few images of Bega women from central India. Now for the Bega, tattooing is a very important aspect of womanhood. A girl starts getting tattooed at the age of 9, 10 when she hits puberty, and then it continues till the time she becomes a mother. So different parts of the body are tattooed at different parts of the stages of womanhood. So when she becomes a mother, the neck and the chest are tattooed, and that is the last tattoo that she gets. Before marriage, her arms, her back, they are tattooed. After marriage, the legs are tattooed. So there is a very deep connect with the ink and the stages of womanhood. And for the Bega, the tattoos are a part of their identity. This is another community from central India called Ramnami. What happens with a lot of practices in our traditional spaces is that because most of them are oral in their nature, the origin story keeps changing and it keeps evolving as the practice is passed on through generations. Now with the Ramnamis, there are two kind of storylines that are attached with why they get the name of, Lord Ram tattooed on them. One story says that, since they are from the lower caste and they were not allowed into the temples, they decided to tattoo the name of the god on their own bodies. The other story says that one of their ancestors had a dream where Lord Ram told him to spread his name across the continent. And because they were poor, the only medium he had was his body. So he tattooed the name of the Lord on his body and started to travel across. So these are two completely different stories, but both are believed. But since there has not been any documentation, there will always be a question mark about the origin of the story. This is in Western India. These are Mer, Ahir, and Rabari tribes from Rajasthan and Gujarat. For them, tattooing is a form of permanent jewelry. They believe that, before marriage, a girl has to be tattooed because if they are not tattooed, they get taunts from the mother-in-law saying that, weren't your parents even rich enough to give you a little bit of ink? And if you see the way the tattoos are done, the patterns kind of form bracelets. They look like jewelry on their own self. Um, and a lot of their motifs are inspired from what they see around them. So you will see birds, animals, scorpions, leaves, which are basically inspiration that they get from what they see around in their environment. So that also shows that in our traditional spaces, the imagination is directly linked with the nature that they grow up in. This is in southern India, a community called the Todas. They are very small in numbers now. They live in very, very specific places in the Nilgiris. Now, the Todas have a very strong visual identity of wearing their hair in a specific kind of curls. And if you see the tattoo motifs on their legs also have similar flowy structure. These tattoo motifs of the Toda tribe are also similar to the embroidery that some of us may be familiar with of their shawls. So these are fishing women from Andhra Pradesh. Again, in their community, they do tattoos because they believe that tattooing specific parts of the body can help with disease prevention. This is a tribe called Kutia Khond in Odisha. The women tattoo their faces, and these markings are supposed to be a map with which they can find their way to their loved ones in the afterlife. These are Santhal women, a scorpion motif for protection, leaves for prosperity. This is again in Jharkhand. These are Oraon and Kurmi tribe women. The patterns that they tattoo kind of signify the paddy fields, because paddy is the main agricultural produce over there. This is a tribe from Arunachal called the Apatani. The Apatanis also, there are like a few different stories about their origin. Some say that, the facial tattoos and the nose plugs were done to make the women look less appealing for other tribesmen. But for the women that I spoke to, for them, it is a sign of beauty and identity of an Apatani. For them, the bigger the nose plug, the more beautiful they feel. Yeah, I'm done. So, as you can see, India has a diverse and a very rich heritage of tattooing traditions. It is high time that we start reviving them and we start taking pride in what is ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your presentations. We are all in agreement here that the documentation of tattoo traditions should be conducted in a sensitive manner, also an equitable manner. But as we all also know, that our good intentions, don't always remain the same when we are in the field. During our field work, we encounter various ambiguities and contradictions. So, Phejin, for instance, in your book, I encountered a memoir of an 85-year-old tattoo practitioner called Ngon Angya. And she talks about how she's very grateful to you that you have documented the practice in your book, but also that tattooing was a very painful and a torturous affair, and that it was compulsory for both men and women of the Konyak tribe to be tattooed, and importantly, also that they did not have a choice. And if I remember correctly, she says, I have mixed feelings about it. Now, I find this very interesting because while on the one hand, yes, we have to document these traditions, but at the same time, the question of choice and agency of these communities also matters, because you can have a kind of missionary zeal to document everything. But on the other hand, the people who are either making those tattoos or are wearing them have also changed. Their economic, social, and cultural circumstances have changed. So, how do you deal with those contradictions?
Personally speaking, for me, for our tradition, Konyak tattoo tradition, it was practiced because of head hunting, and it was compulsory for every male woman to have tattoo marks. We believe that we will not join our ancestors in the afterlife if we do not have the tattoo marks. So for women, it was a form of cycle of life from having passed from one stage to another. For the men, it was status, because at that time, the body was a canvas. It was like a person's life story was depicted on ink on the body. So that was the way of life. But because of the ban of head hunting and because of the conversion to Christianity, because of the influence of modernity, our people decided that it was a time to stop this painful practice. And it also goes its pros and cons. When I asked my grandfather, he told me that they did not have a choice. Individual did not have a say because it was the way of life at that time. So, and then nowadays, if suppose I am fully covered with tattoo on my face, I wouldn't get a job in the mainstream office. So that way, also our people, if we get a full facial tattoo, it has no meaning now because our of headhunting culture is has vanished according to the changing times. And so to blend in with the changing times, we had to stop the tattoo practice, and it cannot be revived. So what I try to do is to document this before it's lost to humanity, and the old people are like living libraries, and once they die, their oral history will pass away with them. So what I'm trying to do is to, as a researcher, is to document as much as possible before all is gone.
What can I do? you is that you don't self exoticize or glorify the tradition, and you give space to criticality, to different ways of reading the tradition. Over to you, Mo. Uh, in your practice, again, you have, in a way, one would say, extended the tradition or reinvented it for today's context. So, what are the challenges that you face when you are repurposing the tradition and sharing that tradition with people who don't belong to that community?
There are many challenges. If we go into that, it will be a long one. So I will just skip to the other question about sharing it with the world, right? So the way I see it is that the Nagas were headhunters, and that was one aspect of our life, you know. But we also ate, drink, live, and dreamed uh, and work with the natural environment just like any other communities around the world. Our aspiration, our dreams, uh, stories that makes people uh, connect to their land, and to not forget to work with what they have and to become a better version of an individual and as a community. So all of those knowledge are passed down through different mediums, through songs, through stories, through rituals and carvings and textiles, you know. So it is not just tattoo that we use to express. If we look around today, you will see one of the most prominent way of identifying ourselves and something that we share with the world is our textiles, you know. And just like tattoos, textiles, the handloom, the shawls were also about headhunting. It was also about status, you know. It was also about our tribe and communities. But we found a way. We found a way to take it forward, to keep the story alive, because when all these stories are gone, when all the lessons are not passed down, we become just another person without identity, something to hold on. We lose and we forget who we are, you know. So I feel that it is very important to keep the knowledge and the stories forward, but also finding a way to make the craft, the art of tattooing as a medium of expression to keep the story alive. And one of the challenges that I faced along the way so far is our Naga brothers and sisters not knowing how the tattoo can be relevant in this modern context, right? So but if we don't know about the tattoos, if we don't know the stories, you know, if we stop tattooing because of outside influence, and if we don't turn back, and if we don't have the courage or the honesty to look and understand what it really is for what it is, then we will very easily let it go. Very consciously and with knowledge and with understanding, you know, if we take the step, then it is understandable. But we did not stop tattooing because we chose it. We were stopped by external forces, right? And so at this point, when my people are not getting the tattoo, how do I revive it? How do I keep the story alive? That was the biggest challenge. And I realized that, you know, that if the chains that stopped us from tattooing, if the forces that stopped us from expressing came from outside, maybe I should use that same force to bring it back, you know? And so I found a way, and and that is what artists must do: be creative, innovative, and to find, because the artist is the one who keeps it alive. So I come up with the concept of Naga tattoo, and before I did that, there was no such thing as Naga tattoo. Naga tattoo is storytelling of my ancestors, all the wisdoms, and their stories, the lessons that they shared and they passed down. I collect them, I learn from them, and use the tattoo as a medium to tell stories and something that resonates with the rest of the world uh, because the stories are universal. The story come from the natural world, our relation, our connection, and humanity. So Naga tattoos are about the human being, our stories, our journey, and that is how I navigate. And hoping that one day our people, ourselves, will start getting the tattoos again.
But you are also translating something that belongs to a very specific sacred context into a secular one. So, uh, I mean, how does this tattoo symbol travel?
So, I don't give tattoos that talks about an individual or a community or a specific that talks specifically about the tribe. Uh, the tattoos that I do, the Naga tattoo that I share with the world, are, like I said, visual script. Tattoo is a medium, right? So, for example, we are talking in English, but we are telling our stories, right? Uh, I can talk in my own language, I can talk in Hindi, the content will be the same, but the sound will be different. The visual voice, the visual language uh, is, is different, but the context is the same. So uh, when, uh, when you, so the way I do it is spend, this is my, uh, 16 years of study of Naga tattoo art and design culture. And through study and research and learning, when you spend enough time, you start understanding how to communicate and how to speak in that visual language.
Yes.
So if the study and understanding don't back the work, then the tattoos will not be saying, so will not be telling stories. And if we just take it from our grandparents' body and give it to another person, that would be wrong. That would be disrespectful, and this would be disregarding our heritage. And so that is how I work.
Yes.
And using tattoo as a medium of language.
Yes. So it's more of a mode of transcreation, and then of course everything, all the challenges that are embedded in that mode. Thank you, Mo, for clarifying. What are the modes of translating something from a sacred context into a secular one. And Shatabdi, I'll just sort of connect you back to my conversation with Phejin about the relationship between gender and tattoo traditions. And for example, the Gond women of Chhattisgarh, in my research, I came across that, they, because of social stigma, because it can be very painful, they have stopped tattooing their bodies, and now they are using that cultural knowledge and they are transferring it onto textiles. So they're doing textile art with Gond tattoos. So they still want to keep a dying tattoo tradition alive, but they are doing it by other means. They are not carrying these tattoos or wearing them on their body. So, if you would like to perhaps, comment on this question of criticality, and a critical lens through which we can see the question of gender.
Right. So one thing that I've noticed, or rather observed, over the last few years that I've been doing this work, is that uh, in majority of the communities and tribes, is the women who are more heavily tattooed than the men. And I've also seen how in a lot of spaces I only find the tattoos on old wrinkled skin, and once those elders pass, that tradition is gone forever. uh, in my conversations, I've figured out that because of a lot of discrimination that our communities face because of their tribal identity, they have that has also been one of the reasons why a lot of the people today do not tattoo, why a lot of the younger generations don't have these markings. It is a little ironic because tattoos in traditional spaces, like Mo was saying, is a part of your identity. It's a visual identity of who you are, which community you belong to, which village you belong to. But the same markings, when these community members come in this mix of modern, urban, this overlap, these are the markings that discriminate them. So they are letting go of something which has always been very crucial for them. Uh, Given the situation and given this kind of an upheaval that is happening, I think all traditional practices go through an evolution and they find ways to express themselves. So what you were talking about, how the tattoo motifs are now being translated as other patterns onto other mediums, I think is a way to keep the practice alive, even if it's not in its original form. It will keep evolving. So a pattern that you see on an old woman's ankle of two birds which are facing each other, which is a very popular Gond motif, will now be seen on cushion covers and curtains and all. But we still have to find a way to hold on to the authenticity of that design, of that motif, where it comes from. We should not forget the origin story. Is what I always think.
And of course, I mean, when you talk about discrimination, we must remember that this discrimination is not just post-independence.
Yeah.
Even in the colonial times, in fact, nomadic tribal groups were treated very, very shabbily. In fact, the 1871 Criminal Tribes Act,
Yeah.
that was passed by the British, turned these nomadic tribes into thieves because it was a catch-22 situation. They were seen as savages. The tattoos that they carried on their bodies were again seen as something which is a taboo, not a tattoo, but a taboo. And they lived in dire poverty, and therefore they had no other choice but to steal.
Right.
So in fact, Mushtaq Khan, one of the researchers of these various tattoo traditions, I read he said that in the 1980s, when he was researching the tattoo traditions in Madhya Pradesh, he went to the Badi community, the same community to which Manglabai and Shantibai Maravi, the painters, who belong to this community. And the people of that community, when they saw him, they just ran away. Because even up to the 1980s, they thought that these were not researchers, but police officials who had come to actually, put them in jail. So that's the kind of discrimination that these communities suffer. So then you can imagine that the same tattoo, facial tattoos, which are a marker of their identity, are also ways in which they are discriminated
Right.
against.
I think it began with the colonial lens of civilized, uncivilized, primitive, modern.
Savage, yeah.
So yeah, so
Absolutely.
it started from there, and with all the conversions and missionization over the years.
To all of you now, because we have about 6 minutes left, I think throughout this discussion we have been talking about interconnectedness. We're talking about coexistence. And we're using these terms because we are not only talking about the tattoo tradition as a singularity. Phejin, Mo, Shatabdi, all of you have talked about how the tattoos are linked to symbols in nature. Phejin, maybe perhaps I could ask you again. You actually have a farm stay, and you use that farm stay to basically help with your research work. So, can you?
Yes, I built my farm when I was 29. I'm 45 now. So I started very early. I built my own house, my own road, my own electricity. And I started as a guest house to fund my research of the Konyak tattoo tribe for 4 years. So that's how I would host people, and then I would travel in the villages of India and Myanmar. And it's now becoming. I love meeting people. The world comes to my house. So we have visitors from different nations and different Indian cities almost every week. So it's quite interesting.
So again, both Phejin and Mo, they also cultivate gardens. Mo, could you talk a little bit about cultivating the plants that you actually use for tattooing? But very briefly.
Yeah, so I've, yes, also very quickly, I've been collecting plants because different tribes use different plants for tattooing. We don't use the metal for needle. We use the thorns. The pigments are also comes from the nature. And there are more than 25 Naga tribes, and there are more tribes, neighboring tribes. And to understand tattoo in its wholeness, completely, is also to understand the environment, the plants, is a very integral part of it. So I have a place called a tattoo village that I'm setting, where I have brought in all these different plants and growing something called a tattoo garden, which is the only of its kind in the world, and you're all welcome to come and experience it.
And there's a tattoo garden. There's also a handloom unit you were sharing with me.
Yes, there's handloom. I'm also an appointed designer for the handloom by the Ministry of Textiles, India, Manipur, to innovate, to bring innovation, to help keep the art alive, the craft alive. And like I said, I'm a designer. I study art and design culture, and it is not singular. Like you said, they're all interrelated, and it is just not possible to stick to one. And it's just very natural for me to work with all of that. So apart from the handloom and the craft, I also work with indigenous forest food, and so I also grow a garden, bringing all the indigenous food from that
Yes.
region.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And maybe we could just take one or two questions, please, from the audience.
Yes,
My
sir.
question is regarding the indigenous aesthetics of tattoos. Do you think that it is sort of a time machine to our bygone biodiversity and bygone culture? What is your take on it? And to Shatabdi, skill tattooing is reminiscent of Google's body computing. Recently, I gone through Google's body computing, where lithography is the algorithms of lithograph done skin. So skin computing, it is a prelude to your skin tattooing is prelude to body computing. Your take.
Okay, very quickly. Yes, aesthetics, like I had said, is a very important aspect of my work. In fact, the most important, I would say, at this time, because tribal indigenous aesthetics in its true essence is very different from the one that we are conditioned to have today. The concept of beauty, the standard of beauty that we measure and we look at the world through does not exist where in the place where this art and this craft were practically lived alive in that time. So the aesthetics, the true aesthetics of tribal indigenous expression, whether tattoo or textiles or whatever, talks about that environment, that land, their interaction. So yes, it has changed. So a lot of the tribal indigenous art that we appreciate and consume today in this modern market uh, don't really carry the true essence of the art, because these are products that are curated, designed, and created by designers and artists that are trained in schools and universities. So you're right, if to understand that, to understand true indigenous expression, we will have to live in that time. We'll have to go back and we have to think. And that's what I do for past 15, 16 years. I try to live in that world. Yeah. We have
So, firstly, thank you for using the term time machine, because now it's like my favorite way of looking at this whole thing. Because it is true, we are kind of documenting something which is especially like the work I'm doing, it is documenting something which is dying on one hand, but is also evolving completely separate from the traditional space. It's only people like Mo and Phejin who are kind of trying to bring it together. Uh, and yeah, like the documentation that I've been doing, I look at it from that kind of a space that it is an archive that I'm creating of what used to be something very normal and usual and a part of our own history and culture and tradition, which we have actually lost a lot of it, but hopefully there'll be a little bit left for the future generations to kind of go back to in time, like you said. Thank you.
I just want to supplement to how she responded. Tattoos are believed to mark our identities in this world, in this lifetime, and it is believed to continue our identity to the next life. It also sometimes talks about the past. So it talks about our identity and culture beyond this lifetime and beyond the time that we are living.
Thank you so much, Phejin, Mo, and Shatabdi. It was a really lovely discussion. And I think we were able to talk about the body that wears the tattoos, but also talk about social, cultural, and economic challenges, but also talk about the metaphysical realm. So thank you so much.